and it's time for scrap, reform, keep. Today we're putting self-driving cars through their paces. As it stands, there are no self-driving cars on UK roads, but the Department for Transport says the first vehicles capable of driving themselves could be ready for use later this year. I'm delighted to say I'm joined now by Jim Holder, who's the editorial director of What Car. Jim, how would you feel about stopping at a red light and looking in your rear view mirror and seeing a driver slumped back, their hands not on the wheel, watching the telly?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit disconcerting, and I think it's a journey that we all have to go on, if I'm brutally honest. I think we all know the challenges of driving a car safely at the best of times, and handing over control to essentially a computer or a set of computers. It's definitely something to give pause for thought. Now, on one hand, we'll all happily get on an aeroplane and let it fly itself without a second thought. But on our roads, it definitely is a cause for concern.
So how does this technology actually work then in practice? How will it actually be able to get someone from A to B safely?
Yeah, so many of us today have systems on our cars, perhaps that keep you a set distance away from the car in front on the motorway. They'll nudge the steering wheel to make sure that you stay in lane as well. They can perhaps even sense when it's raining and do things like the wipers. So cars are quite capable of reacting to the environments around them. What this is taking is those small bits of technology and combining them together to create a fully self-driving car. So it's using radar, LiDAR, which are more advanced forms of radar, to keep a sense around what's happening in the car. And particularly, it's reading the lines on the roads, the signs around the speed limits, and it's trying to respond to what it can sense cars around you are doing. But it's important to say, this technology is not faultless. It is still learning how to operate. I've been in a self-driving car when it has failed to read the road, a few years ago in a test track in a very carefully controlled environment, but it can go wrong. You can get snow or mud covering those radar and LiDAR sensors that can obscure what's happening. And that's why in this interim stage, they're saying the driver or the occupant of the vehicle has to be ready to take back control. And I think that really is where the bigger concern is this middle stage of introducing this technology, where it's sort of relying on a hybrid of the occupant and the technology to respond. And if you're watching television, how quickly can you respond? They're saying that they will only use these systems at lower speeds, up to 37 miles an hour. Well, at 37 miles an hour, you're travelling about 16.5 meters a second, and that's quite a long way, particularly, if you're in a built-up urban environment where there are bikes, there are pedestrians, there are all sorts of sort of random factors to take into account.
We hear every 2 minutes, or at least it seems like it, about Russian spyware or Chinese malware, these things that none of us actually really fully understand what they mean. Is there a risk of attempts to hack this sort of technology that could actually be rolled out throughout Britain to try in an attempt, I guess, to improve road safety by reducing human error? Is there a risk of these things being hacked somewhere down the line, or am I just being a total, Luddite here?
No, I think it's a very good question. I think you raised one of the main positives of this technology, and that is, theoretically at least, it should reduce accidents. But absolutely one of the negatives is the risk of hacking. A couple of years ago in the States, a couple of activists managed to do just that and drive a car autonomously down a highway, having hacked it. And of course, that is a major concern. When I was a child, the concern was about your car being stolen and hotwired and driven off. Now, in the future, we're going to have absolutely this concern, and you're going to have to rely on the car makers staying one step ahead of the criminals. And you have to say, that's an incredibly hard thing to do. They haven't managed it even with the theft of cars, let alone the hacking of them as well.
Jim, on a more positive note, I don't want to be completely negative about this because I am quite excited by it as it happens, but do you think this is good news for the British economy? Just how much is the British economy suited, tailored for this sort of new emerging technology? Have we been sort of leading the world almost on allowing this technology to be tried and tested on our roads.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is perhaps the crux of why the government are so keen to make the changes and get on with it. This technology is estimated to have a global value running into the multiple trillions. For the UK economy, around 40 billion. For the value of jobs, tens of thousands potentially if we can get it right. And we have been leading the way, as you say. Our university programs and our car manufacturers really have taken some of the leadership here. It needs huge investment for us to stay there, but it also needs us to be testing these cars on our roads and staying ahead of other nations which are also scrabbling to get their share of the pie of these trillions that are on offer if they can take the leadership. So I think that's why the government's trying to move quickly. Whether it's moving quickly enough is perhaps another question, because if we want to win, you can bet that we'll be fighting with every other country trying to take that leadership.
Yeah. Now, Jim, the last question then is the most important one, and that is, should we scrap, should we reform, or should we indeed keep self-driving cars?
I think we should keep them. Absolutely. They are the future. They have many potential benefits. I think we need to be slightly sceptical as to how we do that and keep an open mind, but a questioning mind. But absolutely, this is coming regardless of whether you like it or not.
Yeah, indeed. Jim, I'm glad that we ended on a bit of a positive there, because I was starting to sound like a negative Nelly. But that's Jim Holder, the editorial director of What Car. Thank you very much for your time.